When it comes to Formula 1 games, everyone thinks of either the Codemaster F1 games or the OGEA F1 games. With games like F1 2004, 5, 6, Champions Edition, most people grew up with these. And as for the Codemaster F1 games, well, they're the modern ones. For me personally, I've only ever played the Codemasters F1 games, and they range from really good to just average. For me at least, F1 2021 is the best one, followed closely by F1 2020. We don't talk about you. And from what I played of F1 23 from the trial, it's a big step up from, well, that, because sliding every corner isn't fun. But just because I didn't play the old F1 games means I didn't have an F1 game to play. Downforce. Released in 2002, it's an arcade racer developed by Titus Interactive and Smart Dog. It's about F1 and Indy cars, or maybe it's a mix of the two? I don't know, because some of these look like Indy cars, others look like F1, and some look like both, so maybe it's a hybrid between the two. Well, this was my favorite game to play as a kid. I would play it all the time with my dad. This is the game that got me into Formula 1. There's a mixture of twin turbo V12s, V10s, and V8s in the game, along with some custom engines in here that you can unlock by winning a few cups. Like the title suggests, this game is all about downforce, so much so that the rear wings on some of the cars are insane. Look at how exaggerated some of them are. Some of these might as well be airplane wings, so obviously with rear wings like that, the handling is really nice. You have grips for days and can basically send it into every corner. Sometimes. Yeah, you can't go too crazy on the curbs without risking a spin. And there's even a DRS system. How cool is that a game from 2002 comes up with an idea that wouldn't be implemented into F1 until 9 years later? Unlike in real life where you press a button and the rear wing opens up, the rear wing automatically lowers. This is a moving part, which is banned in real life, so I see why F1 never implemented this version of DRS. And oh yeah, this is basically F1 Burnout. You can wreck the other racers out of your way. This is why I liked this game as a kid. I would even go in a free race, start a race, and drive the wrong way just to have a head-on collision with the other racers. So luckily there's no mechanical damage, just visual like smoke coming out of the engine and also your front wing falling off. So if you crash, you'll just reset on the track. The music, it's alright. It's kinda engraved into my mind though, just cause of how much I would actually play this. It's a bunch of techno and electrical music with a bit of EDM thrown in there. It feels a bit like F-Zero GX in that case. So you have 3 championship categories: beginner, intermediate, and expert. Beginner is pretty easy. You only have 3 laps across 8 races. Tracks aren't too complex. You don't really need to let off the brake. There's a lot of straights. And the AI isn't too hard, but they can be pretty aggressive and ram you off into a wall. It's still pretty easy though, and it basically felt like doing practice laps. Fitting, because you don't actually have practice laps in your Grand Prix mode. You start and are immediately thrown into one-shot quali. Luckily the game is easy enough to get the hang of it, so it's not too much of a problem at first. Intermediate is a bit harder. Tracks are more complex with twists, turns, hard braking zones, and the AI are a bit tougher, which can lead to some pretty good racing. Expert, however, yeah, I didn't do too well. In Expert, the tracks are way harder. There's blind turns, hard braking, fast acceleration, tight turns. It's all here, making that one-shot quali format a bit of a problem because you unlock tracks as you progress. So if you're like me and just beeline dash the whole thing in one sitting, it's gonna be pretty hard because you're basically gonna have to learn these tracks on the fly. And also, just because you're leading doesn't mean you're safe. Anything could happen, like here when I spun out on the very last corner of the race because I rode too much of a curb. Well, that was fun. Especially when the same thing happens again in the next two races. The thing that sucks about spinning out at the very last corner of the very last lap is that these races in Expert are pretty long. With only 5 laps, you wouldn't think that was long until you realize laps in this cup average at around 2.5 minutes. So yeah, they could range anywhere from between 8 minutes to 13. So yeah, not too eager to restart the race if that happens at the very end. Wait a minute, is that the Las Vegas GP? Did I say Las Vegas? More like Hanoi. All of the tracks here are original, which means real tracks like Spa, Monza, Red Bull Ring, and Mugello are not here. So instead we have tracks like Florida, Singapore, Las Vegas, and Tokyo. Not to say the game suffers because of it, because the original tracks are still good, because the gameplay is still really fun. You know, like I said earlier, you can really send it into and out of corners, and because of that, it kind of feels a bit like F-Zero GX. Well, I mean, not as fast, but still has that hectic feel to it when bumping the other cars or when bouncing off the walls, and like I mentioned earlier, the music. But this came out a whole year before GX, so actually the saying should be F-Zero GX feels like Downforce. I'm just kidding. So yeah, that was Downforce basically, more or less, and this really flew under the radar. Like, what is that, 500,000 sales? It doesn't even have a proper Wikipedia page. And with Titus Interactive going under in 2005, and I cannot find anything about Smart Dog, so I think it's safe to say that there'll be no Downforce 2. That is a giant shame, because this is still a really fun open wheel arcade racer, and it's still fun to go back to every now and then. I even broke the lap record on one of the tracks. Am I, me, the world record champion? Well, all I gotta do to find that out is enter this code at downforce.com. Well, not to ruffle my own feathers, but I have been known to... What the... Well, joke's on you, Google, because I can't read. Oh, man. How am I supposed to find out if I'm world record champion now?